Hi, and welcome to Prequel to the Sequel. Today I'll be showing you the second part of my manga collection. So first up, I have Your Line April, Volume 1, with a variant cover. This is not the cover that you would get if you buy it just in the bookstore. I actually got this in Loot Crate, so that's why the cover is different. Next up, I have Black Clover, Volume 1 and 2. At the time when I got these, there was only 3 volumes out, so that's why I haven't continued, but I actually plan on getting those pretty soon. And next up I have Platinum End, Volume 1. There's only about 2 or 3 volumes of this series out in America right now, and it's actually by the group who did Death Note. It seemed pretty cool. The artwork looks pretty good, but that's by the same guy who did Death Note, so if you've ever read that and seen the art, you know how good it looks. Next up, I have High School of the Dead, Volumes 1 through 5. And then I have Volume 6 and Volume 7. That's all that's out right now, and that's probably all that's going to come out. The guy that was writing this actually died not that long ago, and the series had been on hiatus, I think, since about 2013 or 2014. So this is a series that will probably never get finished. It's not that good. I've only read, I think, the first 3 volumes. I will read the rest just because I own them and it's not that much. And when I'm done, I will probably do a review on this channel. Next, I have the first 3 volumes in Puella, Magi, Tart, Magica, The Legend of Jeanne d'Arc. This is actually a manga about Joan of Arc, but it's like alternate history where she's actually a magical girl. And it's pretty good. The only thing I don't like about it is there are these pages that have tons and tons of text telling you what actually happened in history. And I'll actually show you. And in the last pages of the manga, they actually have this that tells you a ton. Like, the words are extremely tiny, and it just takes forever to read. But me being a completionist, I had to read it. That actually probably took me just as long to read that as it took to read a single chapter. Yeah, this is a pretty good manga. I would recommend it, but if you wanted to start in this same universe, I would definitely recommend Puella, Magi, Magica before I would recommend this. Next up, I have Rave Master, Volumes 1 through 8. There's Volumes 1 through 5. And here's Volumes 6, 7, and 8. This series is actually by the guy who does Fairy Tail, and I didn't know that when I originally bought these. Apparently these are very hard to find because they're out of print, but I actually found all 8 of these at a used bookstore for pretty cheap. Next up, I have Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend, Volume 1. This is a pretty old series. I think it's from like the 80s or early 90s. It wasn't very good. You can definitely tell it's old based on the artwork. And the storytelling, I didn't really enjoy it, so I definitely will not be continuing that. Next up, I have Persona 3 Volume 1. I feel like this manga could have been better. I feel like the only way you would enjoy this really is if you've played any of the Persona games, which I haven't. It kind of just throws you into the story, and it's kind of confusing, but I feel like if you would have played the games, or at least any of the games, you would definitely know what's going on more so than if you have not at all. And finally, I have Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt Volume 1. This is a pretty good manga. The artwork is really nice. It's about mechs, so if you enjoy giant robots and military style storytelling, it's pretty good based on those things. I definitely want to continue this series, and I plan on buying more volumes of that series very soon. And next I'll be showing my 2 hardcovers. First off, I have Tomie by Junji Ito. It's the complete story of Tomie. It's pretty thick. It's pretty expensive too. I think it was $35. it's a pretty good series. It's pretty old. I think it actually holds up fairly well, just based on what's going on in the story, and the artwork doesn't really look that dated. But yeah, I'll be doing a full review of that very soon. And next I have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 1, Phantom Blood, Volume 2. The reason I only have Volume 2 is because one of my friends actually lent it to me to read, and then he moved away and we lost contact, and so he never got it back. So that's the only reason I have Volume 2, and I really need to get more of these JoJo's Bizarre Adventure books in hardcover. They're actually releasing them in this format now. Getting them in the individual paperback volumes is just going to be too difficult because you can't find them anywhere. But these are really nice editions, and this is a very good series to read if you're wanting to start a new manga series. So next I have 7 Billion Needles Volume 1. This is a pretty good manga series about aliens. It's pretty short too. I think there's only like 4 volumes out maybe. But that's completed, and it's pretty good artwork too. Very strange. And speaking of strange, I have Ajin Demi-Human Volume 1. This is a pretty good series, and the artwork looks really nice. Like, the artwork looks very spectacular. And I should be doing a review of this series too. Next up I have Demonizer Zilch Volume 1. This series really just, it sucked. I did not like it at all, and I definitely will not be continuing this. Next up is Seraph of the End Vampire Reign, Volumes 1 and 2. As you can tell by the title, this manga is about vampires. Basically, it's about a war between humans and vampires, and I don't know. I don't know if I would continue this as a manga series. I started the anime first. I only watched a few episodes, but then I found these volumes of manga for pretty cheap, so that's the reason I picked them up. And the anime just looked really nice, so I would probably watch the anime, and if you were interested in more, continue the manga from where the anime left off. Next up, I have Gurure Sora Nagihara, Volumes 1 through 3. Next up, I have the oversized volumes of Blam, Volumes 1 and 2. This is actually a very good series. It's pretty old. I think it's from like 1999, at least from the late 90s. It kind of shows in the artwork, but the artwork is very detailed and it looks really nice. And the story, it doesn't consist of a lot of dialogue. It's mostly just the illustrations, and I think that actually helps the story a lot. You can read through it pretty quick. I think one of these volumes, I think I read through in about, it was less than an hour. But the artwork inside makes you want to stop and actually just look at each panel individually and soak in all of the detail. So next I have Buddha Volume 1 and Tohyo Game Volume 1. Buddha is actually interesting because it's about how Buddhism started. But surprisingly in Volume 1, Buddha does not actually show up. But I like the artwork in this volume, and I definitely will continue that if I ever find them. Tohyo Game, I don't know if I would really continue this. It seemed kind of bland. The characters I couldn't really connect with, and the artwork just seemed not that good, really. But yeah, it's pretty gory, so if you're into that stuff, this might be something you want to check out. Plus, there's not that many volumes out here in America. But if you wanted something crazy, I would definitely recommend Higurashi more than this. Next, I have the Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service, the 3-in-1 Omnibus editions, Volume 1 and 2. This is a pretty good series. It's still ongoing. It's about this group of people who help dead bodies and their souls that have passed on complete a final task that they want completed. And yeah, it's just different stories. There's kind of a main story dealing with the bald guy shown in the first picture down there at the bottom, and his ancestor. But based on these 2 volumes, or 6 volumes really, you don't really find out much about the main story. But it's still a very good series, and I would highly recommend it. Next up, I have LDK Volumes 1 and 2, and enclosed called Fat, which is a 1-volume release. LDK is just some shoujo manga, which means it's for girls. I didn't really like this, and I don't think it was because it was aimed towards girls and not boys. But yeah, I won't continue the series. Next is the enclosed called Fat manga by Moyoko Ano. This is actually a very good manga. It's very depressing though. It follows the story of this fat woman and how people always tease her for being fat and she doesn't fit in at work. So eventually she starts going on these weird diets and trying to get skinny, and it just follows her progress of being humiliated, and it shows how skinny she becomes, and it's just a very depressing story, but in the end it's pretty good. I would highly recommend it since it's a one-shot, and yeah, it was pretty good. I found it for pretty cheap, and that's the reason I picked it up, especially since it was a 1-volume release. But yeah, this was a pretty good manga. Next up, I have Masamune-kun's Revenge Volume 1, Eyeshield 21 Volume 1, and Chobits Omnibus Edition Volume 1. These first 2 series, Masamune-kun's Revenge and Eyeshield 21, I probably won't continue. I just didn't think they were that good, in my opinion. But if you like American football and you're also into manga or wanted to start reading a manga series, Eyeshield 21 would probably be right up your alley. As for Chobits, this is a story about like robot girls. Basically, they're just there to be your friend or servant, and it's okay. I don't know if I would recommend it. It's pretty old, from the early 2000s. It's not that good if you like action. It's more of comedy. But yeah, that's Chobits. Next I have Food Wars Shokugeki no Soma, volumes 1 through 7. There's the first 5, and there's 6 and 7. If you wanted a good cooking manga to read, this is definitely a very good one that you should check out. The detail on the food artwork looks really amazing, and it actually gives you the recipes for every dish that they make in each volume. So at the end of the volume or a chapter, it'll show you exactly how to make it, and just the way that they describe the food and the way it looks makes you hungry. So definitely don't read this on an empty stomach. Next up, I have Magical Girl Apocalypse, volumes 1 through 5. This was a very, very dark series. It's not complete, but basically it's the story of this group, well, the whole world really. It's just normal everyday life, and then all of a sudden these magical girls start attacking people and killing people, and it gets pretty violent, but yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess. I will continue it, but it started throwing in elements other than magical girls that seemed to skew the story a little bit. It made it a lot weirder, but yeah, it's pretty good. Next up, I have Fairy Tail volumes 5 through 9 and 10 and 11. And the only reason I don't have the first 4 is because I used to own the first 4, but I got rid of them a few years ago, and then when I started buying Fairy Tail again, I decided not to buy the first 4 when I first bought these, simply because I could buy more of the series than if I bought the first 4, since I've already read them. And finally, I have Crayon Shinchan Volume 1, and then I have Citrus Volumes 1 through 3. Crayon Shinchan is just a comedy series following the adventures of this little boy. That's basically it. I don't think there's any main story. Next is the Citrus volumes. This is a very good series about two stepsisters who end up falling in love with each other, and it's pretty good if you're into that sort of thing. I hope you enjoyed this video of my manga collection. I will be uploading a new video tomorrow talking about what I've read this week, and I will also be doing 2 reviews. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.